for this, the focus of this gathering today was around the divine feminine and the Shakti energy that people talk about. And I have a few questions, but maybe you want to we can simplify. And in your perspective, a lot of us hear about the divine feminine and the divine masculine, the Shiv Shakti energy, the potential, the non-potential, and transcending it. But maybe if you can share just your basics and perspectives on this first, and then maybe other questions will follow. Because I feel what we're seeing right now in the world is this Shakti energy, this huge creative force. Everything's getting recreated, possibly, right? I don't know. And what is that, and how? And that's happening within all of us at a micro level in different ways. So how do we manage this? Like, what is this Shakti energy in your perspective, and how do we use it or harness it more for our own evolution? Because I guess the name of the game is evolution. I think that's why we're all here, and in this kind of workshop or these gatherings with you. So those are maybe to start with that, and maybe other questions will come, because I'm also wondering of the Vayus, because I know you focus a lot on the movement and the Vayu energies, but maybe that'll come later. But for now, maybe you can lay the foundation of your perspective on the two energies.
See, as my journey has been, it has always been towards the fundamentals of how exactly we understand these terms which come down from the Vedas. Now, what has happened? Vedic sciences are oral sciences. They are transmitted by sound. It is very difficult to comprehend in today's world how information can be transmitted by sound, because we are so used to read something and then comprehend it. It becomes literally different. Like right now, if I'm saying something very slowly, you'll think, okay, it is knowledge. If I shout, you'll think that, okay, I'm being very aggressive. So for us, sound energy only comes with what we make of how a person is, interacting with you. When you talk about this divine Shakti, feminine or male energy, we have to understand that there is a creative force in nature which is creating, irrespective of your social moral codes. It doesn't matter if you're on the good side or the bad side. Just imagine when we talk about Srishti or cosmos. Cosmos doesn't mean Earth, doesn't mean humans. It means everything that comes inside it. It could be Mars, it could be different galaxies. So there is something which we understand that it is getting created. Something is getting created right now. Something is living its life cycle like a solar system, and something will be dying right now. Somewhere a star might be dying. So we see these three algorithmic phases anywhere. You see it on a cosmic level. You see it in your body. Right now a cell will be born in your body, a cell will die. A cell will be living its life cycle. So this balance is something which is understood. And Vedic sciences have told us that this is how the algorithms work. But it is very easy, very difficult for us to understand this abstract concept right now, because we can communicate, we have done certain maths, we have read up certain books. Maybe whatever I am saying is a little bit comprehensible. But imagine a time where people did not know about all these things. So it made no sense. So they percolated it down, the creative energy, into what we can understand. So they said, okay, how does creation occur in humans? So there is a male, there is a female. So male deposits something and something gets created in a female. So because it is getting created in a female, it is a feminine energy. And a male cannot create on its own. So he requires a female. So that was understood as a feminine energy, as a divine feminine energy. Like, okay, as how a woman creates in herself, there is a divine feminine energy which creates everything. And that's what we used to call as Shakti. This is how the academics, the different schools of thought, the different religious schools started propagating it. And it is not wrong. It is nice to start the subject like that. But when we start understanding creation, we have to understand that creation cannot be one-sided. It cannot be biased. So like if tomorrow we hear that, thousands or 10,000s of people died in Africa due to, let's say, malaria, then we'll say, oh, how bad it is. But why it is bad? Because a mosquito is also a creation of nature. So what makes us the most important species? Similarly, as we say good and bad, so we say one man's savior is other man's terrorist. It depends upon what school of thought you are believing. On a functional, personal level, these things do not matter. Only your existence matter, only your path matters, of whether I have given myself chance, an absolute chance to enjoy this divinity of life which I have been granted. If you have been granted a good body, if you have been granted all the limbs, you have the ability to think, you have made some decent money, I'm not saying good money, decent money to sustain yourself, you're already on the evolutionary plane. So what more can you do with this life? Because this creative procedures, things like COVID, tell you that how fragmentary life is. It can just end, and we might keep thinking, like somebody was saying that, I've got this disease, I need to take insurance, I need to go do a checkup, I need to take immunity pills, I need to see that, I don't get diabetes because my mother has it. But this kind of virus comes and everything goes out of the window, right? You're not thinking anymore like that. You're just thinking whether you're going to get through the next day safe. Whether, even if you're safe, can you go to another person's house and be absolutely sure that because of you, he's safe? So see, these questions which never appeal to our mind are suddenly coming up, and that's where creation is. So when we talk about divine feminine and these creative powers, we are only understanding this power either through meditation, oblation, maybe rituals, or self-study. You can use any path to go there. As long as your mind is evolving and you're being so disconnected, understanding that I'm just a thread, a bead in this necklace. I'm not important. I'm just making the necklace. But it doesn't mean that if one bead has to go, I am the important bead, I will stay. Entire necklace can disintegrate. And that is what these concepts of divine feminine and masculine energies were trickled down for people, mortals like us, less intelligent people like us to understand. But on the cosmic level, it was said that anything that is creation, anything that is getting created, that potential to create is Shakti. And that object of adherence, where that potential is there, when it becomes aware of its potential, that is the masculine power, because that potential has to be held within somewhere. It just cannot be everywhere. Though it spreads in all directions, its conception is very limited. Its conception can be microns, the least conceivable point which a mind can conceive. Yet it has a form, it has a dimension. Beyond that, nothing exists. And that abstract concept was not understood. And that is the reason why nowadays we do it, we try to associate them with this feminine energy. We do our sadhanas, we do our oblations towards it. But the whole concept is to get back to this creation and understand that how fickle we are, how less important we are. And in nature, there is nothing called as good and bad. Of course, on a human level of coexistence, because we are coexisting as humans, we follow certain rules, so that we can coexist. Like I always give an example that if I have to kill someone, I won't kill them because I don't want to kill them, because there is law which prevents me from doing it. So there is a crude methodology and there is a methodology where you act out of conscious. So on human level, it is fine. On human level, you'd say it's wrong to kill. But even if the thought has come in your mind that you want to kill someone, it is still a creative thought. It's Shakti. Because when that thing happens, on a human level, someone dies, it is a bad thing. But on a gross level, it is making way for new things. Like when bushfires happen, people burn forest. We feel it is a bad thing. But it is apparent that when bushfires happen and eventually they go down, new forest starts happening. When a tree falls in a jungle, it restricts the access for people to go inside. After a few days, if you go and you see a new plants start growing beneath the trees. If you take an open plot, a construction plot which is dilapidated, you just break that plot, you just put up boundaries and you just say, okay, no one owns the plot. So no one will look for it. You will see within 7 days, 8 days, 9 days, a new kind of forest has developed within it. So creation finds a way. When we start, understanding the logic behind it on higher terms, we understand the concept of divine feminine and Shakti. So, I hope I try to make it a little bit simplified for you to understand, introduce the subject, but hope it was helpful.
When you, because of COVID right now, and you just also shared it earlier, the ability to adapt, right? So the whole word, a common word right now is pivoting. We hear a lot about everyone's pivoting, everything needs to pivot. Literally, I mean, I'm in New York City and the leadership, the government, it's a new scenario every hour where they're pivoting. So this ability to adapt and pivot, and that's part of creation, right? Because we are creating, and when you talk about creation, this force is is it working? And you're also talking about algorithms. So how I'm understanding around algorithms is, are you talking about the subconscious coding or the subconscious patterning that we have? Is that what you're referring to? And is this the adaptation with the Shakti energies, that this Shakti energy is helping us adapt?
See, I'll make it a little bit simple. The quotient happens is that because everything, the word you use, pivot. So because everything is changing, we think it should change for the good. Like there are a few arguments which are going on right now that because of COVID, climate change activities got a boost. No one was caring about it, but now because they are forced to shut down, the climate change is happening. The animals are coming back. Few people, a lot of people are getting infected. Few people are dying. Few people. So we always see pivot from our point of view. What we feel is righteousness. Mm-hmm. When I talk about algorithms, it doesn't care who we are. It tries to sustain itself at whatever cost. So if there are exoduses, if there are mice migration, they are also a part of it. If there is a tsunami, it is also a part of it. It is not going to be selective. You can always say, okay, there was so much bad thing happening on earth, so this thing happened and a lot of people died. If I become a part of it, so be it. It's a good way to assess it. But if you see when I say algorithm, when I say the basic mathematical formula of creation which trickles down, these things do not exist. Things change because an higher existence needs to survive. It is not our lower existence which needs to survive. So when things are changing, when something is happening, you might say that this virus was created in a laboratory, it came from bats, who knows? You might say because people are eating live animals, this virus has made a jump. Not required. If this thing was not transferred from animals, it could have come from a melting glacier, or it could have just come from just somebody going up and spitting, or some mutated disorder. It could have come anywhere. The question is, what change it is making is showing us that how fearful, how insecure we are about life. We talk about fearlessness, we talk about going out there, we talk about this concept what we said of Shakti, Devi, but when it comes to the real thing, people don't adapt. People go into their shells, they lock down themselves, they become so fearful that what will happen if I die. And then these concepts are not clear. Therefore, application will only make you clear. As I said, adaptability. So in that adaptability, even I can die, I can pass on. But it can so happen that while adapting, through me, through my breath, whoever are around me might get an immunity. You never know. But somebody has to adapt. Somebody has to accept the change, not when it is safe. You cannot say, okay, there is a vaccine out, there are drugs out, now I'll go out. Of course, you have to follow the quarantine, you have to follow the rules. But in your mind, you should be free. You're doing it because it is a rule. But you're not doing it out of fear. Mm-hmm. So see, everyone is going to evolve. There are businesses which are at loss, which are very apparent. Right now, they are not important. But someday it is going to hit. Tomorrow when the lockdown goes down, are you going to still go and hire a work? Are you going to hire people from New York to work for you? Are you going to hire people go and work in a vicinity? How safely are you going to go and travel somewhere? That is a question each one will have to ask. And that is adaptability. It is not now everybody is in a lockdown, so everybody is happy. I am not earning, he is not earning. Everybody is happy. Tomorrow when the struggle comes, in whatever environment it might be, will you go out? That is Shakti. That is the change you have to imbibe. That is the change you have to adapt, because without your contribution, nothing is going to happen. If somebody is producing something, somebody has to buy something. If you're not buying, somebody is not producing, then no creation is happening. If no creation is happening, then some kind of creation on a higher algorithm will happen, where few people who are not up to it will perish anyways. They might not perish of COVID, they might perish of poverty, they might perish of insecurity. It doesn't make a difference. Death is death. So that is something, an adaptability, which this Vedic sciences tells you that from yug to yug, from generation to generation, from era to era, this kind of changes happen. They happen at micro level, maybe in your body, when you're going through a transformation. They can happen at a physical level, where suddenly you meet an accident and everything changes for you. And it can happen on an epidemic level, where the consciousness, our approach changes towards how we want to coexist in life.
However, are these bushfires, pandemics, et cetera, also our contribution? Since we have abused resources so much and moved away from the natural alignment, our individual nature as well as our relationship with nature?
It's a valid question to ask, but I think it is not, I won't say it is a very technical way I can think about it, because you cannot do an action thinking it is right or wrong. You're a part of an action. If let us say, I give this example a lot of time, that if we say that we should not kill animals, but you have to feed your population, so you have to increase farming, right? So if you increase farming, then you have to cut forests, so animals are anyways going to die because you are destroying their natural habitat. If you think one herb is medicinal, it is very good, you take it out of its natural biodiversity and you start creating farms out of it, it is still going to cause invasive diseases. It is going to cause a crop which will burn the soil. So we can judge our actions with respect to what we are contributing to our surroundings. But eventually a time was there when that thing was demanded by us. I still remember when, if you check historical books, when the advent of modern technology, roads, bulbs, lights, electricity, transportation happened, there were people in the interiors who were just staying absolutely in conjunction with nature, following the natural times, having good houses, farmlands. They requested the governments that why isn't development coming at our place? And that is the reason why they started giving up their farms, roads started getting created, industries started getting set up, because everybody wanted a piece of the puzzle. Everybody wanted to work somewhere and earn good money. They did not want to do that hard work because it was becoming redundant. Nowadays we feel having community farms, growing raw animals, trading them is like an in thing. We are doing a service to humanity. But just move 60-70 years back, this was a norm. People got fed up with it. They sold their farms. They started working in factories just to have a good life. People started giving up their customary cooking habits so that they can make food pretty quickly, because food was not a necessity, earning money was. People started moving to big cities. They started getting more, coalesced for time. So they started inventing even more. The invention of microwave happened, refrigerators happened, you started getting cold foods because you did not have time. So it is not that it is because of you have not made the change. The change has happened and you have been a part of it. Now suddenly what is happening, because it has become so overwhelming, we find these things which are happening, which are good, and we say anybody is doing something against them, they need to be punished. So we want electricity, but it has to be solar. But the quotient is, can you live without electricity? Can you live without water coming from your tap? Because that has to run on something, right? It has to have motor. You have to have pipes, which could be of lead or some material, which someone has to create an industry to prepare it for you. You're not going to make pipes out of wood and bring water to your house. So see, we are part of this microeconomy where something is justified at some level and something is not. So in evolution, these things do not make a difference. You cannot save the planet by doing climate change. You can create an awareness. So when this kind of epidemic happens like COVID, we say, okay, this is justified, this is not justified. Now, what would have happened if there was no climate alarm? Everybody was respecting nature, everything was fine, everything was happening in a humane way. Still, this virus would have come. Still, bushfires would have happened. And then how would have we distinguished it? So this is what the Vedic sciences or Shakti sciences tell us, that in the higher algorithm, these things do not matter. But in the lower algorithm, this conscious comes to us because we are part of a action and we need to sustain. If somebody is eating a lot of meat, there have to be people who have to raise their voices against eating meat. It balances out. If there is no crime, then there is no crime control. If there is no unhealth, then what is the requirement of people like us? And if everybody is healthy, then doctors are not required. So if we are doing imaging techniques, if we are doing blood tests to see if we are healthy or not, that also comes from a part of insecurity. Why do you need to know if you are healthy or not? But you do this blood test annual. From there comes insecurity, from there comes fear, from there comes this requirement to do something about your immunity, from there comes the requirement to, and see, it is a trickle down effect. And therefore, when we start seeing evolution in that way, I think so we develop a very restricted view, black and white, but we will start seeing evolution from a very cosmic point of view. These things do not matter.
So when you spoke about earlier about the higher existence needs to know, that's the algorithm, that the higher existence will rule. So basically, then that higher existence comes with uncertainty, right? There's no control. And that's kind of what's happening, where there's this battle between where the human mind may want everything planned or control, but this high entropy state or this high energetic, high existence state already has this intelligence, just like our cells, and it already knows what it needs to get done. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
See, I put a point here and say that even getting that higher conscious to colonize other planet is a part of their algorithm. It just doesn't come that way. It is if you really see how exactly everything is happening, you will just see that you're a part of a puzzle. Even now, when you want to do an action in a particular place at a particular time, that one action affects hundreds of people around you. We might not know it. We are just going and doing that action. You're going and maybe just picking up a food from a particular store. But when you go and at a particular time, at that particular place, hundreds of more actions are set in motion. And it is something which is explained in quantum physics. So it is like that. Millions of possibilities are there of what you can do and what you cannot. Similarly, what happens in the higher consciousness, like we are humans, we are running this planet, so we feel. Are we running the planet or is the planet running us? We don't know. Similarly, when we say that, the moon is revolving around, or there are planets which are revolving around the solar system, they come to our conscious at a particular time. We know that there might be a possibility of life on Mars, but only the funds for it will get expedited when the need will come. Who has created the need? Few people who own a lot of resources understand that this planet will be exhausting its resources. After a period of time, even if we behave in a particular way, the resources won't be for everyone. So we have to see to go and stay somewhere else. So it's a necessity, it is not a requirement now. But that also comes into consciousness when certain things have passed, when certain actions have happened. So let us say that, everyone 20 years, 30 years, 40 years back, this awareness was not that people were leading their lives in their own small quarters. The concept of going to Mars was not even a necessity. We felt, oh wow, it must be something. But suddenly, as you see in past 10, 15, 12 years, it has gone so bad that people are now thinking of space tourism to Mars. So see how this algorithm works. It is not that what you think and it gets disposed. Even we thinking are a part of it. But that doesn't mean we should stop thinking. You should start doing your work with proper consciousness that I can put in my effort, I can evolve myself. And it doesn't matter what happens to my physical body in the long run. But if you just say, no, I have evolved, no, I have got some special knowledge now, so I use it in a special way, it doesn't work that way. So this is what we mean when we talk about this algorithm and Shakti and creation. It goes from layers to layers, layers to layers, layers to layers. It is like an octopus's tentacles. If you have 10 tentacles, and each tentacle, if you say has an individual mind, and it has gone into 10 different places. Each tentacle will think it is coming from one source, but it will be unaware of the another tentacle. But eventually what happens, the concept is of only the main octopus, which is controlling all the tentacles at its will. So same thing, analogy is given about Shakti, that each manifestation thinks he is in control, or he is trying to do a change within himself or outside himself. When the law runs, the creative power takes away. It is not what you are doing, you're just being a part of influencing myriads of actions around you. And those actions give you a leadway and a path to reach to the higher consciousness. So this is very algorithmic, this is very quantifiable, which has been quantified in the Vedic sciences on breaths, on maybe different theories. And the more upper we go, the more less we go towards the initial concepts, this becomes very apparent. The problem happens is that because so much of literature is available, so much of thought process is available, so much of ideas are available about the same literature, maybe because translations are there, people want to read something in their own languages, the way they can understand, it leads to misinterpretation. Again, I'll put in the point, this consciousness, this transfer was sound to sound. It was not word to sound. Whenever you read something and decipher something, there is always a subconscious perversion, I say that, that you are not understanding it in the right way. It is like a child who listens the first instructions from his mother. There is no translation. There's one sound and the child understands. Or there is one sound from the child and the mother understands, if they are in sync. And that is the purest form of transfer. The more slowly you start teaching a child language, restrictions come. Same thing happens with what you're talking about Shakti. It has been trickled down to a point where we understand in the form of feminine and male, because that is the easiest form to understand. But as you keep that restriction and just associate the same form with all other forms, then it becomes a very restrictive process. As you say, virus from our point of view is not a living organism. It is just something which is floating in air due to elements. But if we talk about the cosmic breath, it's still living. Because if you see about your body also, there is no living part in your body. Even your cells, if I take it outside and everything, one cell, they are not living, they are just a piece of DNA, RNA and some mitochondria inside. It is this gravitational forces, different kind of forces which are acting onto your body in a very algorithmic, rhythmic way, which are making the juices mix, creating the electric sparks, which is creating this yantra of your body, which is life. Similarly, when you take a car, brand new car, and you keep it in a garage, you don't use it. Even after 2 years, you go and see there will be some kind of, damage in it. Like some joints will come loose, some bonnet will come down, your tires will go down. Because even it is a dead thing, nothing is there. The forces in nature are acting on it. It is causing the oil which is already there into the car to stay at a particular place, to become viscous. And these are algorithms, these are basic tenets of nature, which was studied in the Vedas. And they were trickled down and made us understand how life and creation occurs at the minutest of level. So this is how, if we take our evolution, the word what you use, evolution, then that evolution is never planned, the evolution is never unplanned. You are just a part of evolution day in and day out. It is just happening. The same COVID will have different reactions on different people. Some people's perception, it will change. Some people will say, who got infected, okay, fine, I got saved from it, I'm not going to do only community service. Some people will say, okay, fine, I need to earn money, I cannot do this charity work because when this kind of pandemic comes, there is no one to help me. I have been staying paycheck to paycheck, but now when my turn has come for help, no one is helping me. So a good people can turn greedy people can turn good. So it's not only changing everything for the good, it is changing perceptions of how human to human interaction is going to be in the future. And that is where we all have to understand and act.
Those layers, how does one work with our own subconscious patternings? Because that's what's the patternings that we've had. May we have brought it into this world, and what we've created in this world has either it's helping us or it's not helping us. Either way, it is what it is. But so that, how do these layers get dealt with? I mean, is that why we have, the rishis have given us this dinacharya practices
See, the question comes of how you're approaching consciousness. Eventually we all start with a greedy effort, that I want something. I want to evolve. I want to have an extra body experience, or I want to have a great body, a good life. But in the process, if you're really clever enough and really studying, we say that individualism never matters. It is not something we have to search for. You have to just understand that how can I facilitate this body to get maximum experiences. It doesn't matter good or bad. If you get bad experiences, you still require a body to recover from it quickly. If you get a good experience, you want that body to sustain in it. So when that becomes your goal, then this greediness goes away. Then you don't fear life, death, immunity. You just are concerned that how much I can get out of life, because you don't know when it is going to end. There are people who have absolutely no disorders die. There are people who will say, okay, why doesn't he die? He's got so much suffering, drag on for 20 years. We have seen this. We have all seen this in life. So it is not easy. You can put any karmic, reasonings behind it. Okay, because of his karma, because of astrology, because of this, because of that. And it doesn't make sense. The quotient is, what are the forces of nature in this planet where you are born? What are the quantifiable forces of nature? For us, there are only sun and moon. Apart from that, we can't see gravity, we can't see wind, we can feel temperature changes, that is fine. But we see sun and the moon. They rise at a particular time, they set at a particular time. From our point of view, actually they don't rise and don't set, but in that sense, what I'm saying. So if we align a body with them, from the genetical ethnology where you come from, you understand what kind of foods are easily digestible by you. It doesn't matter if it is meat or wheat. And you just become that one with nature. You improvise, you don't compromise on the utensils, the cooking methods. You don't compromise on your eat and sleep times. However, money you will have to sacrifice. It becomes an internal, a way of worshipping, being in tone with nature. And that is where these layers, what you're talking, do not matter. They just go away. If we say, okay, I've got a weak heart, I've got a weak lung, I need to do something for it. It doesn't matter. If you have arrived into life, if you have sustained life with that weak organ, it is already supporting you. You just need to support it in a much better way. Because if it did not support you, you will die the moment you are born. But we think, okay, this is a weak organ, I need to care for it. I need to do something so that it will support it. I need something, a tonic for that organ. And there is no such tonic for a particular organ. Of course, you can inject something into an organ and get some temporary relief. That is a different thing. But in the overall homeostasis, you are not supposed to choose. You can only eat something, digest it well, it will get converted into blood. And depending upon your brain, it will heal what it requires is most important to sustain your life. It is not going to cure your cold because you have a meeting tomorrow. But you might have a chronic backache, which might cause you a debilitating disorder in 2 years. It will use those resources first to cure that. Because for it, your job is not important. But when we talk about what you say, these layers and all, we become very selfish and greedy. And we think everything from our point of view, from the reasoning, what we think is good and bad in nature.
It's been more like, why do you feel in kind of the commercial or even this quote unquote spiritual world where everyone's like really fascinated or addicted to this word Shakti and why it's popular? And it's such a vast energy and concept. And for me, I'm always trying to think of it as around the subconscious. My recent understanding of, I guess, purpose of life has been, and I don't know if it's a right or wrong thing, but it's kind of the alignment of the conscious with the subconscious. Right? And so how does this subtle, immense force of creation play out well in the convergence of both, where then we both transcend this the union of the conscious or the subconscious, even if it's supposed to happen or not, to on this evolving journey?
See, the first question which you asked, I'll answer why people think Shakti is a good force, because it comes from, most of this kind of thing comes from inner insecurities, like when people are insecure about their achievements, about their health, and they can't make a sense of what is going into their life. It is a common way to surrender to something. People meditate, people find ways to calm themselves. Maybe they get an experience. It could be a quantifiable, unquantifiable experience. Depending upon who has helped them go to their experience, it could be a book, it could be a teacher, it could be a friend. And then it depends upon what kind of practices they are doing. So see, in India, what we said, we have got many gods, we have got many goddesses, because people iconographically aligned with different powers, different temples, different lineages, different methods of worship. And this has given rise to a kind of devotion, a kind of surrender to a particular form where they feel they can, throw in their insecurities. As far as Shaktism comes, it also has to do something with the rise of feminism and Shaktism. I'm not using word feminism in a derogatory way, but I'm saying that, it is women power. It is something where women have to stand for their rights, and they find that parallels in that kind of, energy, that power. Shaktism also gives women an independent right to, practice certain esoteric practices with respect to their physiology, which gives them a very different kind of experience, because for most parts spirituality has been a male dominated science in this world. It has been a very devotional science. Thirdly, lot of Shakti practices you can do at your home. Most of the times earlier practices required an intermediary like a priest or someone to perform certain things. So all these things, compiled with other kind of esoteric practices, breathing practices, how easily it has been passed on into the modern world due to social media, due to internet, where information is accessible from the confines of your home. Travel has become easier whenever you want to go anywhere into the part of the world to understand it. Courses like this, what we are doing online, there are a lot of courses which are available online, which give you introduction to this concept. So people in today's world, it has given every person the entrance to do his own personal worship, to surrender to someone, insecurities without being found out. And that is the reason why I feel this concept is growing leaps and bounds. And eventually, when something grows leaps and bounds, there are offshoots for it, which makes it stable, which makes it a cult, which makes it something which people want to get associated with it. So this is something which I'd say is the reason why this kind of concepts are increasing. Coming to your second question of conscious and subconscious, yeah, fine. The whole concept of all these things, of tantric concepts, is to understand on individual level that it is not about your personal gains or your personal choices. It's how you connect with the creative algorithm of the universe, where you understand that this physical body, your purpose is whatever your choices are there in life do not matter. The things you get angry on, the things you get happy on, eventually they do not matter, because they are very dependent. If somebody says something good to you, you will be happy. If somebody abuses you, you will be angry. The whole concept of Shakti is to take this power within yourself that no one can manipulate it on any level. Only you can sustain the experience, and that's how is then a very internal journey, where, as you say, the conscious and the subconscious in your language can meet, because there is a subconscious tendency and there is a conscious mind. Subconsciously you might have anger on someone, consciously you might not show it. You might, then maybe you will act more nicely to that person, but that doesn't take away your subconscious, whatever that your power is, because you'll still be reeling, you'll still be being very angry after that experience is over. And when that manipulation goes away through your sadhana, through your understanding of creative power, that you cannot create an experience, you're already a part of an experience. Slowly but surely this conscious and subconscious gets merged. And that is what is the purpose of all these esoteric sciences.
I have another question. I heard you talking about the choices, that like whatever we are transforming turns into choices, yeah? So I would like to know more about, let's just start with the gross one, the body, and the food we take in. And we know that there is saliva. And in Ayurveda, we have all the 5 tastes. So I'm totally familiar with this concept. But there is something in me which wants to go beyond what's taught in Ayurveda, where it's just like, okay, what do the yogis actually really do? You know, where does that first juice of saliva gets produced? Because we know, or we assume, that a lot of the yogis don't eat, or don't eat a lot, or only have rice water, where according to Ayurveda, I don't necessarily see the 5 tastes in the rice water, or maybe it's there, most likely it's there. So my question is, can we zoom into more onto the first juice, this juice of saliva, where this digestion starts with food?
So see, there are a little bit different interpretations to how exactly we go about the text. Generally, we say that digestion starts here because there is a type of juice what we call as bodhak kaf in Ayurveda language, which helps you understand what the taste is. It breaks down the food, it goes inside, then certain juices secrete onto the food, then certain things get formed. But as you have said, there are yogis who don't eat food yet get good nourishment. So the concept of 6 tastes is one concept. They say that your food must consist of 6 tastes. But then those tastes are not restricted to any food. Like I always tell a lot of people, salt is a taste. It is not a food. The entity which produces a salty taste, sodium chloride, is an entity. Even your saliva produces salt, a salty taste. So it is a taste. When we talk about sweet, sugar is something which produces a sweet taste, but not all sugars. If you say refined sugar, it may be sweet, but it more produces a salt taste. But we think, okay, this is sweet, it must be madhur, the word which is used in Sanskrit. So we first need to understand the etymology of these words on a very grander scale. The problem occurs, we understand them only on very gross scale, and that is the reason we confuse food and tastes. Coming back to yogis, like when they are, let us say that they are feeding off sunlight. Let us say, for example, I'll give you the very grossest example. They are feeding off sunlight. So what they are doing is that they are enabling their cells to produce the 6 tastes. If they can't produce the 6 tastes, they only produce either one of the 2 universal properties of heat or cold. So either their body can be at heat or their body can be at cold, because everybody's body has got a base temperature where it functions at a very, perfect level. It happens at a very cellular level also. When you're breathing, even that ovary or that egg which you release, it will have a perfect basal ovarian temperature. Any temperature beyond it or above it, eggs might release, but they will not be of quality. So it is not necessary that every time you will get shadrasatmak ahar, because you are not going to stay in a house. Sometimes you are going to go somewhere where you will have to make do with one taste. So the yogis thing is different, is that they say that, okay, we cannot curtail on taste, but what is the end result? If you see, first is ras in digestion, then comes virya. Virya is only 2 parts, either hot or either cold. Third is vipak, it is only 3 parts. So it is not necessary that you take all the 6 tastes. What virya food you are creating, is it having heating effect or it is having a cooling effect into your system? Even if you can mimic that, you can still be healthy. So Ayurveda is a very multidimensional science. We insist on so many entities that we have to get up on time, we have to do oil pulling, we have to do abhyanga, we have to eat at particular time. The ahar must be of all 6 days. Then after eating, you should go and eat something so it will get digestion. After digestion, 2 hours, you will get good amount of, a reflux, which will say that your digestion is proper. So, we get so obsessed with all these small things that those concepts, their basic etymological definitions go away. So it doesn't matter if you don't have 6 days. Even if you can create a food which is of consistency with your body, which is creating a proper virya in that particular time, which you can know, okay, this is my basal body temperature. So let us see, if I'm going into the Himalayas, I understand this is my basal body temperature. This is something which I feel completely confident with my yogic breathing, that I can go into this cold without clothes, or I can stay inside the heater with all the clothes. I'm being comfortable. So any food, any breathing exercises which maintains that core temperature will give me nourishment. So therefore, yogis use sunlight, they use breathing pranayams to maintain that core temperature. Same thing happens with food. Like, when I was talking with you, I told you that about whiskey, like when you drink liquor. So you have this food what you eat. Most of the time food is of four. Generally we eat sweet, we eat salty, we eat sour food, and we eat spicy food. We never eat bitter and we never eat astringent. These two tastes are not there. Now let us see, if I drink raw whiskey in the night, I'm getting an astringent taste. I'm drinking an espresso in the morning, I'm getting a bitter taste. So yet if you might feel that espresso and that whiskey is bad, but because in the entire day I'm balancing all the 6 tastes, I'm still getting nourishment. So see that much how algorithmic these sciences are. Now people get confused with, okay, it's sweet, but the sweet of sugar is bad, so you should have sweet of honey. This is also madhur, that is also madhur. No, it doesn't matter if it is madhur or not. What vipak it is creating, what post-digestive effect it is creating. If it is sweet in taste, it will release the biochemical responses. Okay, sweet is coming, let me secrete more acid, less acid, whatever. If after digestion, in the digestive stage, if it is becoming very hot and you are already in a hot environment, you are going to get acidity, you are going to get ulcers. If you bypass that stage, everything becomes fine. But in the post-digestion post, if that vipak is becoming very heaty, you are going to get flatulence, you are going to get problems next morning. So, all these 3 stages are important. Again, these 3 stages change with time. If you eat the same food at the wrong time, your vipak might go away. Your potency of the food might go away. So, this algorithmic changes have been documented in Ayurveda. So, once you go for the most important algorithm, do I want to be on the cold side or on the hot side? You need to understand where your temperature balance lies. Then food doesn't matter. Okay, you say, I cannot find this out. Let me go on the 6 days. But then it is subject to what you eat, how you prepare. Like for example, if you take, let me give an example of food. So for example, you are creating khichdi, right? Which is a very simple food. But while preparing khichdi, if you put salt while preparing, it will become acidic. The same khichdi, if you prepare by adding salt first, it will become nourishing for you. So, you might say, I'm preparing Shat Rasatmak Ahar. Now, let us say the same khichdi you have prepared best, but you overcook it because the Agni is not some. That is also Agni, right? That is fire, because it is transforming the rice and dal into something homogeneous. If that Agni is high, if you overcook it, you are going to get acidity. The same khichdi, if you undercook it, you are going to get flatulence. But if it is the right heat in all directions, you are going to get optimal digestion. So this all levels of small things have been mentioned in Ayurveda. That doesn't mean we have to get paranoid about it. But if we can take one concept and adhere it, establish it from sun to moon properly, it doesn't matter if you're eating raw food, meat, beef, eggs, doesn't matter. As long as it is eaten at the right time, it is maintaining your core temperature balance and you're getting very good post-digestive effects. I'll also give you another example because you talked about saliva. Sometimes that we put central line, when you are dehydrated, you put dextrose glucose. It is bypassing the saliva. Isn't it nourishing? It's still nourishing your system. So Agni is not always, therefore there are 3, or you have studied Ayurveda, so there are 3 laws of nourishment, right? Direct nourishment, structural nourishment, and transformatory nourishment. What food you eat gets transformed into a tissue of its form. Or if you eat food, you directly get. There are 2-3 laws in it, in Ayurveda, which are called as Poshan laws, nourishment laws. So it takes into account everything. It says if you eat food by stomach, the body will digest it into the first tissue and so on. Sometimes when the body required what food you eat, gets directly transformed into that tissue. And sometimes, you just replace the tissue. Sometimes, what happens in earlier times when people used to get a lot of blood loss, they used to do Rakta Basti. Rakta Basti means they used to take blood of the pig and they used to give an enema of it. And suddenly the blood used to increase. So they were not feeding them anything because it was useless at that time. So they used to bypass this rust digestion and straight away depend on the transformation power in the bloodstream. So here they bypass Ras Virya Vipak, but are they bypassing it? No, because that Ras Virya Vipak also happens on the cellular level. Each unit of life which is taking a food also understands it to your biochemical receptors, which rasa is there, which taste is there. It creates a post-digestive effect. It creates waste products, and it creates a long-lasting nourishing effect on that cell. So it goes from the minutest to the grossest level.
Yes, I'm familiar with these concepts, and that's where my interest is. Where do I go beyond these limitations? Because I've been practicing as much as I can for quite a long time, and that's where I also work with my clients with, which is a very good base to start with. But personally, for me, it's like, how do I go deeper? And my awareness says this is where the Vayus come into play, right? Because that's where we start changing, I'm guessing, the temperature. Because depending if there's apana, a stagnation, or prana, whatever is not flowing properly there, I think will create the change in temperature. Since that's such a big part of digestion. And you mentioned at the beginning that elimination is so important. So when we eat, that we fully eliminate.
Yeah, see, it again depends upon how we perceive these concepts. As I said, that I always say there is only one Vayu, but it is understood in 5 forms of how it works into the system. So for us, when we see on the very algorithmic level, Vayu means motion. Anything where there is motion, we understand it by Vayu, because nothing moves without it. And being a student of Ayurveda, you understand that no other dosha can create disease on its own, but only Vayu can. What is the reason? Because even if the other 2 humors have to create disease, they have to interact. Acid has to go to phlegm, phlegm has to go to acid. So wherever there is movement, any kind of movement, perceivable movement, even if I'm talking with you and you're listening to my voice, there is a movement. Transformation is happening in your ears. So that movement is understood by Vayu. This Vayu is understood into the body through its actions. There is a downward action, there is an upward action, there is a sideways action, there is an inward action, and there is a circulatory action. These are the only way things can move into your system. Now, yogis, as I've said when I was talking to Shweta about how books, how translations have created these mirages of how exactly these Vayus are, because they get crossover into a lot of things. You have different Vayus in Tantra, you have different Vayus in Yoga, you have different Vayus in Ayurveda. In Vedic sciences, there will be different Vayus. In Bhagavad Gita, there will be different Vayus. In Mahabharata, there will be different Vayus. So we get confused. But we have to understand that the Udan Vayu which is mentioned in Mahabharata is not the same what is mentioned in Ayurveda. The Apan Vayu which is mentioned in Dhati Yoga Pradipaka is not the same Apan Vayu which is mentioned in Ayurveda. So they are understood by their functions. In Ayurveda, that is understood by a downward function. Whatever we excrete comes under that Vayu. So it is telling you about a nerve complex which gives you complete control over evacuation. It tells you about a nerve complex in other Vayu which gives you complete control over insertion. It tells you a Vayu about complete control which is causing rotation of mixing of juices. It tells you of a Vayu which tells you that it has got complete control of how it is spreading into the system. And there is tells you of another Vayu which holds your system together. So when you're getting up, moving down, moving your organs up and down, you're getting into a jerk. There is a Vayu which is holding your system together. It is not that in your move out, your heart is going to pop up and pop back. Everything is stabilized with a system which we call is our strength, which is understood by the Udan Vayu. So these Vayus are understood by their actions. Any micro afflictions in their actions, we understand by the way it changes the dynamics of a system. Now you can control it with yoga, you can control it with diet, you can control it with sadhana, you can control it with breath, you can control it with mantra chanting, you can control it with anything. That depends upon the lineage and the school what you are following. So every school of thought takes into account these elements. Even if they are teaching you only yoga, tantra, ayurveda, Veda. So, these are not refractory sciences. Today, we are learning them separately because that is how education is. We learn Ayurveda, then we learn about yoga, then you learn about tantra, then you learn about mantra. And then then someday something else. And these concepts become very overwhelming. They are same concepts, but they are understood as per the school in different forms. And here, what I would like to say is that, for example, I'll give you about alchemy. In alchemy, in Mercury, we do a lot of, sanskaras. But the whole concept is that we take Mercury to a particular stage where whatever you give it, it is not going to increase in weight. Whatever you give it and comes out, its weight becomes stable. So it says that your body should be like Mercury. A time should come into your system that whatever you eat, even if you eat like 10 kilos of pizza and you excrete it out next day, your body weight should not change. Even if you don't eat anything for 10 days, your body weight should not fluctuate. So that means every Vayu in your body is stable. So that is an optimal stage which an Siddhar or an alchemist tries to achieve. But it is for them. Now, not every person who is living is going to try and achieve that stage, because it comes at a lot of different, concepts, different hard work, So some people are just happy, I want to eat and I want to live. So for them, this raswad is given, see to it that at least you balance your food with 6 days. You are getting good motions. You're not at least evacuating well. If you're not evacuating well, at least have a basti. So when you said you want to apply it, you will have to segregate clients. Certain clients you will understand are not going to compromise. Don't bother with them. There will be certain clients who will say that I will sacrifice. You can experiment with them. Once you experiment with them, you will understand these concepts in a much better way. Exchange of words can give inspiration, but only when you apply it in at least 1 or 2 people. You yourself go to the process. 15 days eating on times, eating the same kind of food. You will see how exactly it transforms you from it. The journey may be horrible, but eventually what you will get in the end will be good. And that is how, we can concise all these concepts into one concept. And that is what is the quotient of Vedic or Tantric sciences. Therefore, it is called as Sutra. Sutra means, with one thread, you understand the entire cloth. And that is what is the aim of any science. Sutra Rup Ayurveda, they say. Why? Because it is that one thread which makes you explain the entire, any treatise which is there into the world, it can be explained by that one thread. But the etymology of the thread should be understood. There will be a translation and there will be an applicable meaning of it. The applicable meaning can only be understood through application. You have to apply it. The translation can be found anywhere. People will translate it word to word, etymology to etymology. That is different thing. And in oral sciences, this was there. The bhavartha, what we say, the translatory meaning was always put forth. But the applicative meaning was only understood under a good guru or under a good teacher. And the surrender to apply it in your life.
I would like to hear a little bit more about the cultivation of fearlessness, which Sumitji talks about so often. I think often fear is an offshoot of our conditioning of what life and success is, as well as the attachment and approval from familial bonds.
See, I can only talk about the way I look at life, because for others it might be different. But anything that makes you justify your actions is contrast to fearlessness. I always say fearlessness, if we say in the Shakti definition, it is not like absence of fear. It is very much awareness of fear, but the ability to deal with it, to understand that, okay, this is something which is there, but I'm not going to let it influence me beyond a point. So when you start doing it, you start living life the way it should be lived. Most of our fears come that if we achieve something in life, we do not want to let go. We say, I will at least hold on to this. It could be money, it could be a relationship, it could be just knowledge, or it could be anything. It could be just the place where you're sitting and feeling comfortable about. You just don't want to move out of it. And there comes a fearlessness, because then you start judging everyone around you to make you get out of that situation. You start judging people who come, friends who come to your place, and you'll say, okay, because I've got money, maybe he's coming to ask money from me. Or in something else, like you'll start doubting your partner because you're into a very comfortable relationship. You will feel bad if they are talking with someone else. So that for me is fearlessness, that you have to be in the moment. An experience has been given to you. You are a part of the experience. Be in that experience, but don't get attached to it. If you can cultivate that feeling, then fearlessness comes. It is not that you won't get feared. You're in a plane which is about to crash, you will get fear. Everyone will get fear. But because a plane is going to crash, you will never climb a plane. That is something which I feel should not hamper your life. And if one can cultivate these things with the help of sadhana, you can do some sadhana, you can do some esoteric practices, you can read some books, do some meditation. But if that thing is not making you fearlessness, it is making you comfortable. Okay, because I'm doing this, I'm comfortable in my place. This is not going to happen. Then we should rethink why we are doing that.
Sumit, I heard you talking a lot about it's about adaptation, right? So that's what I'm getting here the most. It's sometimes we have the 6 days, sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's hot. Right now, life is just very, very, very different than it was exactly 3 weeks ago. So huge, huge, huge change. So right now we are following all the restrictions because we have to, if we like them or not. So my question is, can you give us practical advice? Because right now it's just like we're in this mega pressure cooker to adapt, and we are clear it's beyond the immune system, or at least what you are saying. Yes, there is immunity, but that's not all. So, and I'm just guessing that a lot of us have different yogic practice or different Ayurvedic practices. And some of us have been adapting with them, but some of us have also been just creating another, how shall I say? Just creating another Band-Aid, which maybe looks a little bit more positive, but now when things start falling away, like now, where maybe very soon we don't know what kind of food we even get. So even my Band-Aid of my proper Ayurvedic food falls away. So I'm really interested in what can we do now to really cultivate that, what you talk about, that adaptation, that force or that core temperature, or to activate that adaptation force.
Just mentioned before, for me, I always make it a point to think of the worst before I develop anything. And throughout my life and practice, I've always been very persistent of someone being independent. And when somebody comes to see me, I make it a point to see that you don't see me again, because that is how it should be in Ayurveda. Now, this comes with awareness of time, that what you can do well. The problem occurs, and I'm not criticizing anyone. I'm saying that it's fine, however you do it. But when we talk about adaptation, we give yoga classes to people when they have time. We don't give them yoga classes when it is required. Let us say if somebody has having constipation or pain, where it is said that, okay, today this guy must not be doing yoga. But we'll still enroll him because he has paid the fees. So I think a time has come for every Ayurveda practitioner, not required if wherever he comes from, to adhere to this algorithmic rules, which will take you into the future. These are not the rules which are of the past. As you said that we don't know what kind of a food we are going to get. It all boils down to what kind of recipes you have already suggested into your computer, which you're going to give to different people. Oh, this is a kapha type, these are the few options. Pitta type, these options. Vata type, some people have those charts. I personally feel that, the more you go towards basic algorithms, the easier it gets for you. Like in my practice, I always talk about 2 things, apatarpan, santarpan, which are like nourishment and non-nourishment. First you keep any patient on food which they can only digest but not store. And when that stage of hunger is reached, nourish them. Now, whatever tools you use, it could be rice water, it could just be plain milk. If you give it with proper dincharya, if you convince the patient of its long-standing benefits, I think they will come to you. They will put more, trust in you, because you're not giving them adjuvant solutions to their problems. You're giving them a complete solutions which helps them deal with all problems in their life. It is not only going to cure them physically, but mentally and spiritually. Secondly, even if you do the dincharya properly, if you do little bit of breathing properly, you don't require a yoga class. What we do that, you do Ayurveda, you also do yoga, you also do meditation. When we compound a lot of things, then what happens is that you're not getting, because that person is not going to follow it over a period of time. He's going to fall out. After a period of time, it becomes a lot of burden to do it, unless and until he's in love with the practice. Means if you love going to the gym, you'll go anywhere. If you're going to the gym just because you want to get healthy, you're going to miss it out after some time. You're going to find points to why not to go there. And this is what I feel in today's world. Not only you, a lot of Ayurveda practitioners have asked me the same thing. And I told them, how your practice is affected. And I say my practice is not affected because, I work the same way 20 years. I don't see people, I give them the same diet. I tell them to follow this. If they don't follow this, I'm not taking them. So for me, nothing changes. The only thing changes is that because of this lockdown, I might not be able to prepare some medications and give it to them. But I still can give them some home remedies to kill time because their discipline, their adaptation is so good. It doesn't matter if he's suffering from cancer or common cold. I know nothing is going to happen because the practices are so less. The dincharya is so adaptive that they don't even have to go out of their house. Initially, there might be difficulty, but now it has become a part of their life. They don't have to put an alarm to get up at a particular time. They don't have to feel cranky if they don't get food at a particular time. They don't have to make efforts to cook certain things at certain days because their food is restricted. So they don't have to think, okay, what I will cook today. And eventually with this, because they are getting a lot of benefit, indirectly they're saving on time. Their mind is becoming free to do creative things, to earn money, to earn something for their family. Now let us say, even if you're giving someone an Ayurvedic food regime, each day he has to look at his chart and say, okay, today I have to prepare this, today I have to prepare this, I have to get the groceries. I'm not saying it is healthy or not, but it is still time consuming because the moment you're getting up, you're putting half of your brain into that. But let us see, if you say 5 days you have to be on milk, 2 days food, that 5 days that person is not thinking. He knows he has to drink milk and get to his job. See what happens, the Vayu becomes stable. The mind becomes stable. And this is what we call as indirect algorithms. You're sustaining the algorithm in a patient. So I'm not saying everybody has to be that strict. But if some kind of a basic algorithm can be developed for your clients, which they can do it over a period of time, where they don't have to come back to you, only for minor adjustments, it not only saves you time, themselves time, and in such crisis, wherever you're in the world, you will not have to, create that extra band-aid what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's clear. And of course, right now I've been working with these concepts because we can't do the very strict things we have done before. Okay. So it's basically keeping it as simple as possible.
Yes. Whatever you can apply.
The values. Yeah.
Even if you can convince them to eat at a particular time, avoid certain things in their food. These things you should not be taking. Convince them that, okay, these are the things you should not be taking, not even in small quantities. Doesn't matter to be very strict. Even certain things, basic things which they feel, okay, they can do. They don't have to rush back to you again and again. I think that is the way ahead where a lot of people will develop consciousness about diseases, immunity, and the future challenges. These are not the only diseases we know. New diseases are going to come. New epidemics are going to come. New form of disorders are going to come. As we go into gene editing, as we go into immunization. As an Ayurveda person, we have to be prepared for everything, even life on Mars. It is not like you have to just restrict yourself to one place. And that's how much algorithmic this science is. But if we apply it from the futuristic point of view and not, when we convince people, no, you have to go herbal, you have to go into fields. If that is going to happen, there are no fields or forests which are going to remain. And whatever they are so expensive that it is out of the reach of common man. Herbal medicine is not cheap. You must be knowing it better than me. It's not cheap unless and until if you are using spices. And that, overall adds to your limitations because you want to do so much, but you have to look at the pocket of the client and you have to say, I can't use the best. I have to use what best I can give him in his budget. And once you start with limitations with the client, you're not giving the right advice. So try to develop in a way that a lot of this clutter goes away and you can use the right thing in minimal quantity. And if that can be done, a lot of these concepts will become clear. And that is the beauty of Ayurveda, that it can be approached from different ways with different methodologies. There are 8 types of parishans which I told you. Somebody does Nadi, somebody does Mutra, somebody does Mal. Everybody diagnoses in different forms and all are independent. But a lot of people will say, if you don't check Nadi, you don't know Ayurveda. But it is not the norm. It might be a popular way, but it is not the norm. What is important is whether a person, your client, is getting an overall result in all his problems with one protocol. And that protocol you can always, adjust as per your own liking and comfort.
Are you going to tell us your specific way or idea of dinacharya? Because you mentioned in different traditions, the different practices or how different things are getting done?
Mine is pretty horrible, so I don't know if anybody wants to listen to it. But I personally, as I said, that I work on the concepts of apatarpan and santarpan. So any patient who comes to me, I first give the body only that much which they can digest and not store. And once the stage is reached, I give them nourishment so that body can recuperate. So as Maharishi Charak says, if you can only understand these two stages, you can cure any disease under the sun. So for me then, different diets for different people, different dosha constitution, different ways do not matter. So as long as I can understand the stages, how much apatarpan is required, when santarpan is required, it becomes easy. So I try to solve it in a much easier way. In that only the breath becomes stabilized. You don't have to do different breathing practice. The moment you do dincharya, eat same food at the same time, your breath goes in discipline. Automatically you're already breathing. There is an ajap gayatri going in you. If that is stabilized, you don't require any other forms of breath. You don't even require pranayama. It is done. You're going to live your life if that can be stabilized over 4 mandals, which is 1 mandal is 48 days, so 4 mandals you multiply it. Your life stabilizes, your jeev stabilizes. And then you have to just keep on doing it and you will lead a good life. So it is very simply put in 2-3 verses in Charak and Ashtanga Hridaya. So even if you follow that and apply it, the entire Ayurveda comes to you. You don't require herbs, you don't require anything. Simple food methodologies, how you prepare food, when you give food, certain things you restrict, time to sleep, time to get up, the kind of water you are using to take a bath, how you are correlating with the sun and moon. Slowly but surely it stabilizes your breath. Because in any disease who comes, if you just observe, there will be breath problems. People will breathe fast, breathe slowly, breathe arrhythmically. One side will be cold, one side will be hot. And you can just understand it by looking at them. So once you start stabilizing it, these Ayurvedic principles of Samadosh, Samagni, Samamalkriya, whatever, so these things become very much apparent. You can see it. And then the patient recovers. If not, if his nadi if his breath doesn't stabilize, then you understand that this person is going to go into serious complications, which we call as Arishta Lakshman. So you say, okay, after 48 days, if there is no results, maybe I can't help you. So, that responsibility also you have to take. So this way, when you start cultivating this consciousness towards treatment, but taking only one point and elaborating on it, then you can, modify your dincharya accordingly. The only question remains how you convince your client.
So right now with this kind of COVID, with the Vayu energies, if we're looking at it, the fastness of it, or the nature of how it's moving, it's really sharp and aggressive and fast. And so we individuals, what's been the impact on that on people? I mean, obviously everyone, it's individual in different ways, but how do we kind of ride its wave better so that we're adjusting, like it's affecting everything within us, right? Physiologically, may you know it or not, physiologically and consciously.
See, I personally feel that this gives you a time to understand what kind of a world we are going to stay in, what kind of a technologies are going to come ahead. Things which were initially rejected due to fear of environment are going to be fast-tracked due to fear of humans. It is a very, very apparent thing, and that is something which we have to accept, however good or bad we feel. People are going to be social distance from each other, businesses going to change. Maybe for some while till we get a viable vaccination or maybe viable medications for it. But no one wants to get infected, right? Even if there is a medication, why would you like to be infected? No one wants to be infected. The nature of this disease is the incubation period when we don't know even if you're infected. So are you going to take a chance to employ someone into your place, however strapped for money he is? Are you going to put your clients in danger just because you want to do a humanitarian work by employing someone whom you don't know? So see, this all challenges are something which we have to face. And unless and until we are insecure about our work, insecure about our own health, insecure about what we offer to others around you, I think, it is no use of how many books we read, how many practices we do, nothing is going to change. So this is a time for reflection of what each one considers fear is. Fear is not only fear of life. It is a fear of, economic disparity, a fear of being casted away, a fear of being out of job, a fear of not being, understood in the right way. There are certain practices, certain things where people used to swear by. After infections, maybe those practices are going to be left away. Maybe there will be certain God-fearing people who will do more upasanas, more sadhanas, more ritualistic works. Some people will turn inward and go into meditative practices. Very few people, certain people might take up immunity issues and start working, but you don't have any measure to to say immunity. Just because I say take Chyawanprash, immunity is going to improve. There is no quantification of it. So see, everybody will have to make a change. Modern medical practitioners will have to make a change. Businessmen will have to make a change. It is going to fast track online services. The kind of sessions we are doing online are maybe become a norm. So what kind of a services, what kind of an outlook you want to come out with when this world is going to open itself for you? That change you have to first start implementing within yourself. Everybody has some or other fear of life. I might have fear of getting back to my country. I don't know if I have that fear, but still it might. If I say if I have to die, I have to die back in my country. I can't get infected here. So, those are certain perceptions which everyone goes through, either momentary or over a period of time. But eventually it is not in our hands. You have to understand that if you have to contract something, it might just find a way through a window. You cannot quarantine yourself in some corner and say, okay, I'm safe. Or I was talking and I was saying that tomorrow everybody will get infected. I will be the only one who is not infected. And somebody coughs on my mouth and I'll die instantly because I don't have the immunity. So see, it works both ways. It is not that because you're not infected, you're safe. And those who are infected are worse. Tomorrow the tables will turn. Those who are infected are already safe because we have got the infection. Those who have quarantined themselves will be at the more problems because there will be nothing to prevent them. So we only look at danger which is in front of us because our minds are so fickle that we only look for those kind of insecurities. But once you go with the algorithms of Vedas, you understand the magnanimity of it. You understand that it doesn't matter. You have to go out there and fight it out whenever your time comes. Okay, right now you are in a quarantine because it is a law. It is not by choice. It is something which you have to do because others are doing. But eventually you understand the moment it comes that you have to go out and face the world, you will do it with the same enthusiasm, with the same change, with the same fearlessness. And if something happens to you, so be it.
I guess what I was kind of trying to understand earlier with the Vayu energy, because Vayu is movement, and the movement is generating. It's a flow, so it's generating life, right? So that life, for some, it's bringing things alive for some people, or as a collective, or at an individual basis. And so, so how is that kind of connected with this? Because it's a higher existence that's in charge, let's say, or happening. And the nature of it is it's abrupt, fast, and so that we're seeing at an individual basis and as a collective where systems are dying and will die, and it's normal. That's kind of really what normal life is anyway. So how do we harness that? Because so many people are resisting it, and then some people aren't. They're surrendering to it too.
See, I feel the answer lies here of what conception we have of consciousness. For us, consciousness means divinity, and we see divinity through human eyes, like how exactly it is affecting us on a very ethereal level. But if you just take that human element out of your mind and you try to understand consciousness, you'll understand it has got nothing human about it. Consciousness is just there. It is not something which is human. We try to understand it from our point of view. There is no mother there who is going to treat you like a child. Consciousness is just this algorithmic way which is going on playing. It could be a resonance, it could be a musical note, it could be anything. When we say Om, a lot of time in the spiritual studies, they say that Om mantra is the basis of consciousness. Now, is Om human? No. If you see the letters, there is nothing human about it. We are deciphering it in a script which we can read. But as a spanda, as a resonance, it is not human. There are many resonances which, even if the resonance of Om, you can't hear it because it is beyond human capability to hear the frequencies of it. So you have to understand that when we perceive something which is extra beyond our perception, you have to understand it is not human. We are trying to make sense of it as a human. So when we talk about this Vayu, about this consciousness, you have to understand that they have got nothing to do with us. We are part of the game. As the Vayu is taking the virus somewhere, it is also entering your system. For some people, it is leaving the system, making the body nothing but a conglomeration of 5 elements which is going back into the dust. The same Vayu is going to take it into another unit, another manifestation. Then life form will be different. We have countless life forms, but are these countless life forms on Earth? There might be life forms on Saturn, but when we go and look for life at Saturn, we are looking at carbon life, carbon-based life, intelligent life from our perception. We want to see a life with whom we can interact. But it is so limited, our perception of life, that we are looking for a carbon-based life. We are looking for a life of what we can make sense of as life. For example, from humans' perception, virus is a dead material, I was telling you. There is no life in it. But what are we considering as life? What are we considering as consciousness? If this virus, this entity is going into your system and is interacting with your consciousness to create disease, so is it devoid of consciousness? It is not devoid of that supreme consciousness, what I was talking about. It still is occupying a space. It still contains 5 elements. It still contains mass. It still contains space. It still contains fluid. It still contains metabolizing capabilities of Agni. It still contains Vayu because it is going inside, it is trickling inside. There is movement in it. And once you start understanding consciousness from that point of view, we understand that it is something beyond human. We try to make sense of it because that is the only way we can make sense of it. Because we are human, we are limited. That is how we can reach the supreme consciousness, what we call as Brahma. But it is not something which is quantifiable as human, neither as a man, neither as a woman. But that is when we start understanding what you call as this higher consciousness. We are limiting it, the term Brahman, by using it as consciousness. Consciousness is something which only appeals to us. It is intelligent life. That consciousness itself is intelligence. It's algorithm. It is not something which is changing its manifestation just because you are human or I am an animal. The same virus is not attacking the animals. It may in future. Right now it is not. It is attacking you. So you'll say, no, why are they selecting me? What is the consciousness? There is nothing called as a consciousness. It is just something which is released by the higher consciousness so that the system can benefit. It is like a purge. When your hard disk is full, you delete certain things. Things which you earlier considered important, now you say, let it go. Sometimes your hard disk crashes, you just leave everything, create a new hard disk. Then you let go of everything. How much hard you have tried to save it. You let go of all memories and you say, no, I need to let go because I can't function like this. Same thing happens in the higher consciousness. Certain things happen, certain things rattle, certain things vibrate, certain things sheds off, certain things comes again. In that process, what remains, what transforms. You are not the same human you were before you started this lecture. If you listen to me, certain things changed in you, your certain enzymes have changed in you, certain parts of your brains have opened. You as a structure are the same, but internally you have changed. The consciousness has changed. So every moment you're rearranging your atoms, you're rearranging your basic molecules, and you're creating a different version of you, though from a perspective it's looking the same. And that is what is the beauty of Vedic science, is it explains this substratum in a very sutra form. And therefore, once we start understanding consciousness from a non-human point of view, achievable, understood, gathered from a human perspective, only then we can separate between higher, what you called as divine Shakti, and the Shakti what we treat as a feminine power.
So what I'm hearing, Sumit, that you're saying the dinacharya, and you're referring very much to the cycle of the sun and the moon, that this is so important for our mind to settle, and that will then settle the breath, and then from there everything opens up, so that we actually don't need other breathing techniques or other necessary sadhanas, that it's very much about the cycle of the sun and the moon. Can you talk more about that? Because I mean, I understand it, right? In the morning the sun rises, in the evening the moon rises, and yes, during the sun I'm active and there's a certain temperature, and then at night there's a certain temperature. So I get that. Can you talk just more about it? How that actually interacts?
See, it's very simple. If you see any yogic books or yogic practices, they always talk about sun and the moon channels, Ida Pingla, right? So that is it's very subtle. You know, we take it Ida Pingla again as something very special. Oh, Ida Pingla, so I need to balance the sun nadi, the moon nadi. They're not saying that. They're telling you very simply that if you balance your heat by yam niyam, proper asana means steadiness. You know, in one place you can sit for a long period of time, doesn't matter where. Breath, you know, pranayam occurs on its own. Nadi Shodhan, whatever is given, different kinds of pranayam is given, is a process to alter the breath voluntarily, you know, for certain purposes. It is not a requirement. We take it as a prerequisite because we are using both the nostrils as Ida and Pingla. So the moment we introduce this concept, we feel we need to show some pranayam. So those specific pranayam, specific controls of breath are for practices where people are, you know, are going for a specific goal. In normal life, it is said if you do yam, you do niyam, which will enable you a proper asana, automatically pranayam occurs. So pranayam is like, you know, control of breath. You have a very much control the steadiness of breath. And then automatically other things happen because you have become stabilized. So when we say about sun and moon and this nadis, you know, it has to alternate on its own. Suddenly you're going in your country, suddenly, you know, winter occurs. But if you're in a proper dincharya, 2-3 days you will feel, you know, little bit chilly, you will feel a little bit feverish. Third day you will see your body has automatically adjusted. Even if you take cold baths, it will adjust it. But the moment a little bit chill goes up and you start taking hot baths, your breath will change. You're drinking normal water and suddenly you start drinking warm water. You do any dincharya, that one glass of warm water will change everything. It will change your base. It will change the intelligence within you. Why? Because you're not allowing to adapt. Because you don't want to put your body into a little bit of discomfort. And when that thing doesn't happen, you don't allow natural shifts into your system. And that is what one has to understand, that they have to be one with nature. Okay, they don't have to go extreme like the yogis who go, you know, naked in, that is a different thing, in ice. But, you know, if you're a little bit clever about it, what is happening to your system? You know, like suddenly you're going into a cold environment, you're not feeling like good about it. You're feeling a lot of hunger. You can't control your hunger. You're feeling a lot of sleepiness. Then you understand that your breath has shifted. So you have to just stay put with it. You have to stay put with the dincharya. Maybe you have to bite the bullet. You have to just control the hunger for a few days. And eventually you'll see your breath become stabilized. So it is an ongoing process. It is not something that you have to do a, you know, pranayam, kapalbhati, and, you know, increase the heat, decrease the heat into the system. So those things, even if in Ayurveda we understand, then Agni becomes some. In Dhatva Agni, Bhuta Agni, Jathar Agni, everything becomes some. You know, your excretion, all the Vayus in the body are acting to the optimum. And eventually what happens, you go through these changes in a very transitory phase. You know, you don't have to do anything else. Certain exercises like Kapalbhati, Ujjayi breath are required by whom? They're required by, you know, like, for example, if I go into the mountains, I don't have any gear. I have to sit in cold conditions to do something. Then I'll have to use that breath to increase heat into my body. Or if I'm talking continuously to people in cold conditions, I'll have to talk with the Ujjayi breath. Because otherwise what happens, I'll get tonsillitis. You know, I'll get sore throat. So I have to do Ujjayi breath. So those are very specific things you do in a particular geographical conditions. But if you treat those as special breaths, so I'm doing, so you know, I'm getting some divinity within me, then I think so that is not going to help anyone. So if you can just, there is this Ajab Gayatri, you know, like the moment you are born, this Hamsa breath is going inside you. Even if you can stabilize it, even if you can support it to change its diurnal variations, you know, like certain times twice in the day, both the nostrils are being active during the dawn and the dusk. So that is a good measure that during dawn and the dusk, are your both nostrils being active? Are you feeling light? Are you feeling stable? I think you have done a good job. But if it is not happening, you'll see that there is a lot of discomfort, there is a lot of stress into your system. You will feel very hyper, you will feel uneasy about yourself. you will feel cranky, and these things happen because your breath has shifted. And that something can be achieved with discipline, which stabilizes all the 5 Vayus, because Vayus cannot get stabilized if the breath is not stable. Because it isn't this, you are inhaling and you are exhaling. Within the inhale and the exhale, countless things are getting created, stabilized and dying. This Vayu is going in this 1 millisecond to all the centers of your system and going out. That's how powerful it is. And that is why, it is very important that if breath has shifted, your nadi shifts. Some people look at the breath. In the nadi, what you're looking, you're not looking at Vat Pitta Kapha. You're just looking how much it has shifted. If it is shifted properly at a particular day of the time, a lot of nadi vidyas will call you early in the morning. The reason is that they see how much your breath has shifted. If they have shifted, they have to stabilize it. Then somebody will tell, no, with one finger I can see Apan, Pran, Udan, Vyan. Then you can make those derivations. I don't know how people make it, but it's fine. If you make it, if you can make it, it is good. But if this one breath can be stabilized with proper dincharya, then no disease will affect the system. Of course, your body will still die. It will still deteriorate, because there is a limited time how much this breath will stay into your system. But that is something which is not under our control. That is how the prana goes, and the prana moves from one place to another place. It has to. That is its conscious nature, transitory. It can play in a particular place, but it cannot be contained. It's a vessel which has to cast away.
Thank you so much. I would like to hear more about the balance of our hormones and how it contributes to coexistence. What are the practices we do to keep hormones in balance as we age?
It's a good question, and it differs from gender to gender. So because I generally speak first on the women. And basically it again, first of all, boils down to the discipline of when you eat, when you sleep, how you cook your food, and following the sun and the moon. With respect to women, it all again boils down to how good are your menstrual cycles and how you have aged and gone towards menopause. So let us say that after menopause, you are getting a little bit of swelling into your system, you're feeling heat into your bones over a period of time, your back is paining. Then eventually that hormonal system is not good because it has not relaxed itself in a particular way. So that is going to cause inflammation, that is going to cause disease. That does not mean that it cannot be reclaimed. If we start following the patterns once again, reduce inflammatory parameters like tomatoes, coconut, excessive salt from the system, eventually some kind of a symbiosis can be reached. In Ayurveda, we say that if there are millions of pages written, there are only very few pages written for women health. The reason is not because they didn't give much importance to women health. It was said that a woman whose menses was proper, she will never fall ill. And whatever disorders are given for women are generally like gynecological disorders. So what we understand from here, that if the woman's menses is proper, absolutely proper, then her immunity is top notch. Very rarely they will suffer from viral disorders or any other kind of pandemics or epidemics, unless and until it is a sanitation based epidemic, where you can't do anything much. So it is like something which you cannot control. But if it is a contagious epidemic, then probably the chances of getting infected are less. If the diet is not proper, if your menstrual cycle is not proper, if your blood flow through the menstrual cycle is not proper, if you're creating more heat into the system, you're going to get affected by a lot of disorders. They could be systemic disorders or epidemics. I have worked with a lot of patients who suffer from multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. Most of them are women. And they come from places where they are doing a lot of hard work. They are malnourished. If you see their blood levels, they are. I'm not saying I always don't take hemoglobin as a parameter for good blood, but if you generally look at some parameters, you'll come to know that the hormonal system is not right. You can see there is a lot of heat into the system, and these women generally suffer from tuberculosis. They suffer from pneumonia, even if they are not working in that kind of environment. I've seen women who have got absolutely top-notch menstrual cycles. They are eating on time, their vitality is proper. I've seen them work in tuberculosis ward, they never get an infection. This is not the same with men. With us, we can get infection anytime because we don't have that access to menses. We don't have that regulatory mechanism within us. So we have to be very specific about our diet. We really have a very strong liver, a better liver than a woman. So probably it gives us that much more benefit to digest some anomalies in food and patterns. But if we don't take much care, even we get liable to disorders. In a woman, secondly, the most important part I say is the thyroid gland, because it has got to do a lot of things with ovulation. It is the gland which makes the ovaries and the brain work in tandem. But with age, if you don't keep your hormones where, you don't eat on time, sleep on time, slowly but surely the gland becomes sluggish and your ovaries and the uterus stop functioning and the brain has to do all the work. When that happens, you again lose your vitality, you lose your immunity. Why does this happen? When you are not in line with your environment, you're not going out into the sun, you're not going out into the moon. In earlier period times, it was said that women get menses as per their moon phases. Nowadays, we don't go out. You stay indoors, you stay in curtailed environments, you stay in AC environments, and slowly but surely the gland becomes sluggish. Uterus, ovaries start becoming less and less productive. The brain takes over, which produces stress, which produces bone problems, which produces muscle problems, and eventually the immunity goes down. Because as I was talking with the gentleman a few minutes back, immunity is what? Its primary function is to sustain life. Even if I am getting urine and going to the toilet is a requirement. If I don't have that much strength, I'll do it in my seat. It is a social requirement. It is a mannerism. It is not a crude requirement. So body's resources are in a budget. You cannot, it is like energy, you cannot produce it or decrease it. You have to have a potential into your system. And that potential is built over time with educated choices. When you do something along with the rules of nature, in whichever kind of era you are staying. I say today you stay in the concrete era, there are a lot of pollution outside. Okay, that is not a choice for you to decide. You have to adapt to it. Still the sun shines, the moon comes. You have to find ways to find synchronization with it. You have to evolve and make sacrifices for food. Just because we get food at our disposal, we cook whatever we want. But just imagine a time where there were no supermarkets. People had to grow their vegetables, people still had to cook. Today we give excuses that it is not available. But you can make it available if you're really concerned about your health. And if we do this with very much introspection, get up on time, sleep on time, reduce salt and sugar, eat on a specific time, reduce the variety of food what we prepare, we slowly understand that a piece of cake tastes like the entire cake. So just go on quality, not on quantity. Eat food as per a physical activity. If you're not doing much physical activity, don't eat much food. Just eat slowly over a period of time. This thing slowly but surely balances, because first thing what happens, it balances your digestive hormones. The digestive enzymes and hormones start creating qualitative blood. That qualitative blood starts, putting an ease on your thyroid. The thyroid gland secretes good hormonal secretions, which creates qualitative egg. And once you start creating qualitative egg, you get good menstrual cycles. You get good menstrual cycles, you get immunity from a lot of disorders.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sumat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Samaji. Thank you.
Thank you.